You know what I wish we had more of these days? The arcade racing genre. I grew up playing games like Twisted Metal and Burnout. It's a genre of video games that I truly adore. It's a genre that seems to be all but dead, both in the AAA and indie markets, which is really a shame. But I think there's a few key reasons as to why this genre died off. I'm Ren with two N's, your favorite little boy in the whole wide world, and I'd like to talk to you about how the arcade racing genre didn't just die, it was murdered. Nowadays, when a racing game comes out, it's either a kart racer, Need for Speed, or some kind of ultra-realistic simulation type thing. Like, Gran Turismo, Drive Club, or Forza. And while those games are fine, I tend to steer clear of them because they bore me to death. I mean, sure, it's great that you can spend all weekend customizing your car, changing the air pressure in your tires so that you can hit turns better and save on precious gas mileage. And sure, it's great that the 2001 Toyota Corolla handles in the game exactly like it does in real life. Now, I get why people like these games. I really do. But I simply cannot stand them. They put me to sleep. But like I said, games like Forza are just about all we get now. And I can't help but feel that me and my needs have been left in the rearview mirror. Because what I want, what I crave, are high-octane, fast-paced thrills. Now, Need for Speed does come out fairly regularly, but that franchise still feels like it's trying to find its groove. It's always been incredibly inconsistent. It goes from being a realistic simulation type game that was meant to be played in first person, where you can feel every single bump and crest on the road, to a story-based experience where the goal is to race across the entire country. But in between races, there were these absolutely just jaw-dropping, stunning QTE events that were a true treat. But shortly after that game, we got Need for Speed Rivals. This one went open world. And no matter what, your car was constantly drenched, soaking wet with water, despite the 100-mile-per-hour speeds and very sunny weather. Need for Speed Rivals was an incredibly broken game that gave me nothing but trouble when it launched. At that point in time, it was the worst, most broken and unpolished game I had ever played. I hated this game with a burning passion. I couldn't go 10 minutes in it without running into a bug. This one right here happened to me consistently. After I crashed into something, the game would just spawn me and continually crash me into more things over and over while respawning me. And while this happens, of course, I have no control over the vehicle. And on top of that, there were cars that would literally phase into reality right in front of me specifically to piss me off. When the game was functional, the actual gameplay itself was beyond simplistic. Standard stuff. It was far too easy and incredibly bland. At best, that game was a 2 out of 10.
I was looking for more exploration, depth and variety, and in this department Rivals is slightly wanting, but its innovative approach to incorporating multiplayer does just enough to compensate.
Yeah, you're doing great work over there, IGN. Keep it up. But after the massive disaster that was Need for Speed Rivals, EA decided to give the franchise a little rest. They went back to the roots of Need for Speed, and 2 years later, they came out with the very cleverly titled Need for Speed, which had a little bit of everything. It had an open world, and it revolved around a story, which was told through some first-person cutscenes. And I absolutely adore these cutscenes. I think they're hilarious.
See, like this? This rim would give Amy an aneurysm, totally.
These cutscenes are just a bunch of millennial remedials trying to inflate your ego.
Oh, strong grip, son.
The acting is over the top, the writing is terrible, and the extras can barely even say their lines.
Honestly, you're the designated divider of the pizza. What can I say?
But despite all of that, I find these scenes so charming, so endearing. I can't help but smile when I'm watching them. It helps that they seem very self-aware, as they blatantly just shove Monster Energy drinks into your face throughout the entire game. Like at one point, they literally shove a monster down your face. And even if these cutscenes are bad on accident, as opposed to bad on purpose, I still love them in the same way I love a Neil Breen movie. Now, while Need for Speed 2015 wasn't a very good game, I did enjoy it. It was just dumb, casual fun. But Need for Speed has never progressed past that. All of their games have been fleeting and forgettable. I don't think that any Need for Speed game over the past 10 years could be considered great, no matter what Jesse Wellens says.
If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback, yeah, it's a great game.
Now, I've been brushing through Need for Speed's history because it's relevant to the video. This franchise is basically all we have left, because despite its subpar quality, Need for Speed makes a really decent amount of money. These sales numbers are proof that there is a very large audience out there that wants to play arcade racing games. I see this as both a good thing and a bad thing, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. What we need at this point in time are more choices within this genre, because none of the arcade racers that have come out in the past 6 years have even come close to what I'm looking for out of this genre. One thing I look for in particular are amazing car crashes and takedowns, which Need for Speed really doesn't have, despite the fact that a handful of the Need for Speed games were developed by Criterion, the very studio that made the Burnout franchise, a series which has tremendous car crashes. I attribute the lack of exciting car crashes to the fact that EA or whoever feels the need to use licensed cars in Need for Speed. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that companies like Lamborghini and Ferrari that let EA use their cars in the game don't want their precious product getting smashed up and demolished on screen. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I can't think of a single video game that featured licensed cars that sustained more than just some surface level damage. If you know of any, feel free to tell me about it down in the comments. Now, Onrush had a golden opportunity to have awesome car destruction in their game, but they blew it. The takedowns in Onrush are weak and flaccid, because much like in Need for Speed, the cars in this game show no signs of damage, despite the fact that I just slammed this guy into a tree at 150 miles per hour. You know, I want to see that baby's carcass wrap around the tree and hug it like a hippie. It's not satisfying to take down an enemy vehicle only to have it maintain perfect structural integrity. Now compare that to Burnout's takedowns, where time itself slows down so as to show you the carnage you've wreaked on the enemy's car. You get to see its chassis getting smushed, the windows shattering, and the tires popping off as the car tumbles end over end down the street. And you gotta admit, this still looks pretty damn awesome to this day, especially when you consider that Burnout Paradise is 10 years old. Smashing up another car like this makes you feel powerful. Not only are you breaking the law by going incredibly fast, but you're using your car as a weapon to reach first place. A good car crash makes your speed feel even more dangerous, but it can also mitigate the frustration of crashing yourself, since it turns your mistake into a beautiful spectacle. I absolutely love each and every Burnout game. There's nothing like whizzing down the street, traffic checking cars, and causing them to smash into your opponents as some angsty punk rock music that I'd never be caught dead listening to on my own time, I promise, is blasting through the speakers of your standard definition television. Now, as much as I don't like that music, it suited those games perfectly, enhancing the overall experience rather than taking away from it. The sound effects are also incredibly visceral. Ramming into other cars is crunchy and bassy. The sound of oncoming traffic zipping past you adds to the intensity of the race. And Burnout Revenge had a great gameplay mechanic called Aftertouch, where after you crashed your car, you could control your wreckage and try to take down as many other racers as you could so as to maintain your lead. It even gave you the choice to sacrifice all of your boost to detonate your car, ensuring that you would take out more opponents. The game also incentivized you to drive as crazy as possible, so that you could keep your combo going. If you started to drive a little bit too safely, you'd lose your combo. But if you were able to keep your combo maxed out as you crossed the finish line, you would unlock more vehicles and tracks. It was a neat little system. And I haven't even brought up the crash mode, which was awesome as well. It was a great change of pace from just the standard races, because the goal was to cause as much destruction to as many vehicles as possible. Each stage had its own separate strategies, and as you got more points, you could detonate your car to use Aftertouch and send it into even more traffic to keep that chain going to get an even higher score. I am surprised by how well Burnout Revenge has aged. This game's like 12, 13 years old, and is nothing but an absolute treat to play to this very day. And recently they even remastered Burnout Paradise, and that also still holds up really well. It's a lot of fun. The sense of speed was perfect. It's got a really decent amount of content in there, and once you learned the open world map and you're able to memorize the shortcuts and whiz in and out of them with maximum efficiency, it made you feel like a real smarty. And Burnout Paradise sold over 3 million copies. While that may sound like a lot, this is still the last official real Burnout game that we got. Now, I can only assume that that's because Criterion's Need for Speed games consistently sell far more copies than Burnout ever did. Since, Need for Speed is more of a recognizable brand, meaning that EA probably doesn't see much of a point in pursuing Burnout, when Need for Speed is a much safer return on investment. And I believe that that's one of the main reasons we no longer get any more Burnout games. Luckily though, another arcade racer came along after that and filled that hole that Burnout had left in my heart. A game by the name of Split Second. Now if you ask me, Split Second is the last good arcade racer to have come out. This game was absolutely awesome. If you drove well enough, you would build up this meter underneath your car, and then you could use that meter to activate traps that would destroy other racers, or alternatively, you could open up shortcuts for you to go through. But of course, other racers could also use their meters to destroy you, which made being in first place incredibly tense. Or you could make the choice to build your meter all the way up, and then use all of it at once to alter the entire racetrack altogether. Every track had several different alterations you could make to it, which meant that each race was slightly different each time you played the same track. Split Second even managed to make its time trial mode fun. Time trial mode's normally pretty boring, you just race against the clock. But in this, not only are you racing against the clock, but you're racing against every single trap on the track. Everything's blowing up around you, you're literally driving through an action movie. And it's awesome. I will say though that the rubber banding was a little out of hand in this game, but I think that was by design, because the more people that pass you, the more people you can blow up, which never gets old. This game was free on Xbox Live Gold a couple of months back, so it's probably a little bit less obscure now than it used to be, but I highly recommend picking this game up. I love it to death. It delivers the high-octane thrills that I look for in an arcade racer. I'm honestly stunned that there weren't more games like this. They were working on a sequel for this game, but it eventually got canned because the studio didn't think there was enough interest for it. To this day, it's only sold about 1.5 million copies. In its first week, it sold a measly 86,000 units. But I attribute those low sales to the fact that this game came out on one of the busiest weeks in gaming history. So just to break it down, Split Second released the very same day as Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands, which was, a relatively well-liked franchise. But that's not all. Split Second also shared a release date with Alan Wake, the hotly anticipated game that fans of Remedy and Max Payne had been waiting to play for something like 4 or 5 years. It had a lot of hype around it, so people wanted to play that. And as if that weren't enough competition for Split Second, another game by the name of Red Dead Redemption also shipped on that very same day. A gargantuan title by Rockstar Games that people were frothing at the mouth to play. How's that even fair? And to make matters even worse, just 1 week later, another arcade racer called Blur also came out. Blur was a little game that tried to blend kart racing with vehicles that handled semi-realistically. It was made by the same guys who made the PGR games, and Blur flopped so hard that it basically destroyed that studio. Now, I kind of appreciated what that game was going for. I was never really a fan of it though, because I don't care for kart racers, but still, Split Second and Blur never even stood a chance. I'm sure the executives over at Disney who published Split Second figured that Alan Wake and Red Dead wouldn't compete with Split Second, since it's a completely different genre. I strongly believe that the poorly thought out release window of both of these games is one of the biggest contributing factors as to why we barely ever even see arcade racers anymore. Had Split Second or Blur released 1 month apart from each other, or a month apart from Red Dead Redemption, or at any other point in time when the market was much less crowded, I think they both would have performed much better, significantly better. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out, right? But I bet you those hoity-toity executives just took a look at their spreadsheets, saw the low sales figures of Split Second, and then held a boardroom meeting where they just decided that, people aren't into arcade racers anymore because no one bought them. But that really doesn't make any sense. There's no logic in that. It's like if I went into a bookstore, grabbed the hottest and coolest new book off the shelf, and asked somebody who worked there the following question. Hey, what's up? Hey, just have a quick question. Do you guys have this book for Xbox 360?
Xbox 360? I'm not getting anything for it now. It's not coming up for it now.
That's like hella not Skrill, but thanks for your time, Christina. Thank you. It's incredibly idiotic. So then naturally, they cancel the sequels, or get rid of the dev team entirely, and then they just move on to making some generic FPS game, or some type of Destiny clone, or a mobile game, since that's where all the big money is. Then for the final nail in the coffin, in 2012, we got Ridge Racer Unbounded. That game sucked. And I actually did a review of that game on this channel several years ago, but I took that video down because it was worse than the actual game. But Ridge Racer Unbounded tried to do everything Burnout did, but failed at it miserably. You could take down enemy vehicles, but if you did that, while the camera was focusing on the car you just destroyed, your car would wreck off camera. That's fun. Meanwhile, over in Burnout, if you got a takedown on an enemy, the camera shows you your carnage, then you get control of your car back. But if the camera popped back onto you and you're in a precarious spot, the game would give you brief immunity. This didn't happen very often, but when it did, it was nice to know that the game wasn't screwing you over. And the rubber banding in Ridge Racer was insane. Enemies would pass you as if you were standing still. It was just a very frustrating experience. I hated it. And sure, these days we got Forza Horizon, but I find that series to be mind-numbingly boring. Same goes for The Crew. It's just another grindy Ubisoft game. I have zero interest in ever touching either of those games ever again. Which brings us to the most recent arcade racer, Onrush. That game came out about a month ago or so, and I just don't care for it at all. Again, I appreciate what it's trying to do, but I think the game's a dud. If this is what we keep getting, then this genre will never make the comeback that I think it should. I think there's a massive gap in the market for something like Burnout. I mean, besides Matthew Broderick, who doesn't want to drive 200 miles per hour into oncoming traffic, smash into other racers and watch them crumble beneath your weight in glorious slow-mo? Who doesn't want to nail a 90-degree turn without losing any speed? Who doesn't want to call down a freaking 747 onto your enemy cars? This middle-aged woman can't get enough of it. She's telling all her friends about it on Discord. Look at her go. Even she loves it because stuff like this is awesome. Stuff like this gets my adrenaline going, and I really, really miss it. I'd love to see this genre make a comeback. I want to see what our current generation can do with it. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this genre had ran its course. Maybe I'm just looking at this with too much nostalgia. I mean, look at games like Flat Out, which had to give itself a really weird and quite honestly really stupid gimmick to stand out from the competition. Or games like Full Auto, which was a very bland mix of twisted metal and just standard racing. Maybe all the gimmicks got used up. But I do know this, that if they came out with a brand new Burnout game, or Split Second, or something along those lines, I'd buy that game in a heartbeat. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of you guys watching this video would too. I've been replaying a lot of these games to capture footage for this video, and like I said before, all these games are still just as much fun to play today as they were when they came out. And that's really all I have to say on the matter. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a video that I've been wanting to make for over 2 years, so hopefully you got something out of this. If not, at the very least, I got to finish a passion project of mine. I'd also like to bring up Stuntman. I liked Stuntman. Let's get another Stuntman. I mean, driving through action movie scenes, that's cool, right? I liked that. But what do you guys think killed off the genre? Did I miss something? Do you think that the genre still has any staying power? Are you sick of simulation racers too? Would you be interested in playing a game like Burnout again? So many questions. Let me know down in the comments. Now I'm going to give you a little forewarning. It might be a little while until you see me again because, as you all know, Forsaken is coming out very soon, and I want to take my time on that video. So be patient, but just know, content is a-coming. I would also like to give special thanks to Average Pixel for making the thumbnail. He's made all of my thumbnails for a few months now, and he's an absolute wizard on Photoshop. He's equally wizardous in Premiere Pro as well. That's an editing program, and he uses his wizardry to create stellar videos. Go check him out. He's one of the few people that gets the Rens Reviews stamp of approval alongside Nitpicks and Actman, but I feel really confident that you'll like his content. Just trust me. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Dude! Whoa, dude! That's a sick engine, dude. Is that a cylinder? Dude, listen up. Can I hop in your car for like a quick 6-second, bro? Because I want to reach some patrons. You cool with that, dude? Come on. Skin the bones, baby. Fuck yeah. What's happening, fucking guy? Whoa, dude! Did you know this shit had a sunroof up here? That's so ill and lit, dude. Can I honk your horn, dude? I'm gonna honk. Let me do it, dude. That's so loud, huh? I like loud noises, dude. That's loud, dude. Whoa, is that an energy? Can I have some, dude? This is my favorite drink, and dude, favorite video game. I can't wait to play Black Ops 4 with my bros. Where we blacking, boys? Right, dude? Yeah, I still like them just as much as I always did, dude.
That smells horrible.
Yeah.
That's not a good one.
Alright, this is the worst thing I've ever done, so just drive us out of the video. Gun it!
What gear is it in?
P. Gun it! Okay, cut. Okay, cut. Okay, cut. And cut. Cut. Cut.